welcome, guys, to the Infinity stage for the panel on onboarding people to DeFi. Arguably the most important part of DeFi right now is making it accessible for everybody because, well, without users, what is DeFi, right? So we are here to educate you on bringing users to DeFi. We have some special guests today. We have Ryan from Tracer DAO. We have Yubo from the Vega protocol, from Parallel Finance. We have Barney from the Vega protocol and Alexis from Open. And we're going to talk about onboarding users to DeFi. So let's jump right into it with the first question, which is, guys, how do you feel that the DeFi user experience can be made a lot easier and smoother for anybody to make a wallet and start to interact with your protocol or others? What is the thing that you would like to see be built and improved on?
It's a kind of a complicated question. A lot of this has to do with really how the UI is, and having something simple and straightforward works pretty well. And I think that, like, in general in the DeFi space, there's been like everyone kind of just wants a UI that seems familiar to people. So there seems to be like a general standard. Like, how like the Uniswap swap interface looks like. A lot of other AMMs have copied that, and it's just it's when it's straightforward, intuitive. You got the wallet all the way up in the top right. Everyone just kind of like, I feel like there's like these Schelling points in the way that the UI is formed, and I feel like this seems to be naturally sorting itself out. Everyone wants to have this easy to use user interface, and I get what would be helpful is more collaboration between teams and their ideas of like how they do the user interface, because it's just kind of like random who's getting to set these trends, I guess. But so that's a big part of it, is just to have something that's intuitive, and a large part of that is because it's such a new thing that like there's not really much like what people knew 10 years ago isn't intuitive. Like you teleport them to the future now, they wouldn't know how to use these interfaces. But like because there's so much similarity and commonality between them, that helps a lot. Outside of that, I don't know. It goes a lot into opinion stuff. I like to be able to mouse over things and learn about stuff as I go. But it's opinion stuff.
Yeah. And Yubo.
This is a really good question, because we think about that almost every day, because our mission is to bring DeFi to 1 billion people to mass adoption. So one of the, I think, big blocker will be mobile first. Most of the people have a mobile phone, not everyone have a PC. So I think having a really smooth integration directly on your mobile phone, and then sort of optimize the UI that is so simple, that fit into the wallets. One of the sort of big issue is that the wallets on your phone is the wallets, and then the derivative protocols or DeFi protocol has a desktop version, and then when you use the DeFi protocol inside of the wallets, then it just looks pretty bad. So if someone can actually mush them together, I think that would be the best experience. So that you have the wallets, and then you have the DeFi you can buy. And then at the same time, having some social recovery, I think, going to be super helpful, because like most of the people, they don't understand. Like besides us, like a lot of people don't understand how to securely store their private keys. So having some social recovery mechanism, it will be extremely helpful to onboard more people.
Yeah, I think when I think about this, I think it's a bit like asking how would you onboard people to finance, and the answer is, well, what are they going to do in finance? What are they going to do in DeFi? So if you are a individual retail trader and you want just to swap something or just to get a position, that's different if you're an LP or if you're a fund. And so really you're you need to segment DeFi into what are the use cases, what are people using, and then the user experience that's right will be different. Like just an LP fund is not going to want to trade on their mobile phone, but then many DeFi potential users will. The other thing is you have to give people a reason to be in DeFi. So if you've only got Degens, you've only got people who are long crypto forever and they're experimenting, they're going to do different things, they're going to want different things than if you're trying to, as these guys said, look for the mass adoption, the next billion people. Those people might want different stuff. And you see this in finance. In traditional finance, you have spread betting, you have retail trading, you have Robinhood, you have professional platforms, and this stuff will get differentiated. To get to 1 billion people, you're going to have multiple types of users, multiple types of user journeys, multiple types of experience, and then you've got to sort out the wallets as well, and you've got to work out how to make wallets easier, and whether that's mobile wallets like Argent, or whether it's improvements to MetaMask, whether it's hardware wallets, all of these things we're kind of working through the UI stuff now, and I hope we get there with the social wallet recovery and usability. I think it's a lot better than it was 5 years ago, but it's also a lot worse than it needs to be to get to 1 billion users.
I love that focus on use cases, because people are coming to these applications to do something, and in DeFi that's often leverage, yield, or hedging. And so I think the core thing is to explain to users how they can achieve their desired outcome with the product. And I think a lot of that goes back to education, because a lot of these things are brand new to users, and it's important for them to understand the risks, whether that's financial risks or contract risks, or exactly kind of what payoff they're getting. And so I think a lot of it goes back down to making sure these users know, like, this is the exact kind of position I'm taking, this is my risk reward, and here's how it's letting me accomplish my broader goal.
I just want to say real quick, I like your answer to this. I think to me you have the best answer, because I think that's just something big that's missing, is whenever you sit down at a new protocol, you're like, what am I actually getting? Like without going through all the docs, what are my risks? Is there any chance I'll just lose all my money? What is that, 0, or is it 1 in 1,000? That's a big difference between 0 and 1 in 1,000. What's my payoff? I really like on the Squeath interface, there's a little thing you can drag. When you drag it, it shows you your payoff structure, as you're setting up your position, and before you click the button, you know exactly how everything is going to go. And I feel like that would be a huge thing for a lot of people, because even experts in the field feel really confused when they're like, well, I kind of have a general idea what's going to happen. Let's click go.
Yeah, I totally feel that. That's been something we've been trying to figure out. And it's not easy, because you're trying to take these, as you guys know, DeFi derivatives, complicated financial products, and distill them down to something that's very understandable in its purest form, and make sure that those graphs are being read correctly, that people aren't misunderstanding them. So for example, that Squeath graph doesn't include funding. And so we have to be very, very clear, this is the payoff without funding, and make sure people 100% understand that, to just give the full picture.
I think this is really, really important stuff, and something that I think about a lot is traditional finance is adversarial, right? And particularly in retail, you hide the risk from people and give them flashy lights, and you want them to trade because you know you're going to make money. When you're building a protocol, you've got to go with all the use cases, but you've also got to give people fair tools and fair information. When I worked with traders in the City of London, they have unbelievably sophisticated tools that explain their risk. What happens if the interest rate moves by 1%, and all of this stuff. That's not available to retail traders, and they lose out as a result in this adversarial interface. But equally, giving them exactly the same tools as someone in an investment bank has won't help either, because they can't interpret it. So the job of distilling the knowledge and the information, producing visualizations and reports and data that says, here's how you can understand the risk you're taking, or you can understand the product you're buying, if you like, or the thing you're getting involved with, in a way that relates to you as an individual and to your use case, it's a super hard challenge, but it's really essential for these kind of open, non-adversarial networks.
Yeah, it comes down to the medium and the messaging, right? So making the UI easier, doing all these things that all of us essentially just hit on, and then making the messaging with our education and our marketing just that much simpler for everybody. So I have a little exercise, if you guys are up for an exercise. Yeah? All right, so I want you to explain the most exciting DeFi contract or derivative that you guys are aware of in the easiest terms possible for everybody here, so they have a really good understanding of what that complex product is, but do it in the easiest terms possible. And Alexis is fired up. We're gonna let her go first, and we're gonna give these guys some time here.
Yeah, so we know it's where Squeath is at. That's all that's been on my mind. I've only been squeething. So Squeath you can think about as 2x leverage, which is something that people might be familiar with, but without liquidations. So if ETH is going up, you're making more with Squeath than you are with 2x leverage. And if ETH is going down, you get liquidated on 2x leverage, but you don't get liquidated with Squeath. Now what's the catch? With Squeath, you're paying funding, and so you're paying a premium to access this really, really nice payoff of unlimited upside and limited downside.
Sick. Who's next?
I'm probably gonna say something a little bit simple, I guess. So I think the Aave v3 is super exciting because they provide this efficiency mode. So if you borrow an asset that are similar to the other asset, the collateral factor, which means that how much sort of loan to value you have, will be higher than when you borrow across different category. I think that is pretty critical features when you think about all of the assets and you categorize them, and then you make the market way more efficient versus a single asset with the same collateral factor across every single pool. And I think that will be super interesting. Plus, like maybe on top of that, people can build on sort of bi-directional collateral factor system. So if you cross different category, maybe you will have different collateral factor versus just one. So another graph on top of this category, I think going to be super interesting to improve the borrowing and lending efficiency.
Nice.
I was asked a question that like, I feel like you're just gonna assume that I'm biased on. I mean, it is the perpetual pool product with Tracer. It seems to be the most exciting to me. I guess Squeeth could be a close call. I think storage is pretty exciting, but although that's not as much of game theory, it's just a technical file storage solution. Just perpetual pools can kind of do something similar to Squeeth. Like Squeeth, just kind of gives you like a constant leverage exposure. And in the way it works, it uses a perpetual swap. I like what we've built at Tracer with the perpetual pools because it's like basically two ETFs that like. And when ETFs is exchange traded funds, so like it manages your money for you, and you can buy shares of it, and then if what they're investing in goes up, you go up too. So these two pools, they send money to each other based on the price of an underlying. So like if you have like a 3 leverage ETH pool, then the price of ETH goes up 1%. The losing pool gives 3% of its holdings to the other pool, and then the pools are slightly imbalanced, and people are incentivized to go back in, so it kind of resets, and it can keep this constant leverage. But the main value of it is that it's tokenizable, and you can take these leverage tokens anywhere. You can take them away from the platform. Normally, you can't take your leverage tokens elsewhere because you have a funding rate. You have to like 2 separate accounts. This all just puts it into one thing, and the value of your token roughly performs like a leveraged exposure, but without liquidation. And it's a very simple, straightforward thing that has just big benefits with a tendency that leveraged tokens do to decay. It has less of that, and we're working on improvements for that. And I'm really excited for that. I think the potential is very high, and we've had some professors excited about it. So I'm cautiously like hopeful that like it could make people who want to keep a leverage all the time not do it through however they were doing it. Like this, it might make that obsolete, and people might prefer to use this, and that's really exciting to me. And I hope it plays out as well it is in the simulations, because it would be pretty game changing.
Sweet.
Awesome. And so I'm going to talk about something that's not exactly a DeFi product, but it's kind of a building block for many types of DeFi product. And something I'm super excited about is the concept of hybrid liquidity. So we have order books and CLOB liquidity mostly on centralized exchanges right now, but decentralized CLOB is coming on some of the sort of scaling platforms and scaling layers. We also have AMMs, and both of them have downsides. If you are providing liquidity to a small market or a new market, it can be very expensive to provide price liquidity. With AMMs, you have impermanent loss, and you have other features around price discovery which aren't so great. In fact, AMMs generally require sort of another source to be arbitraged against to have good price discovery. The thing that I'm super excited about is the ability to combine both into the same market. So effectively, you can have a market where there is liquidity that's provided on an AMM pool, there's liquidity that's provided on an order book, and when you take out a trade, the market itself optimizes the amount of liquidity it takes from the order book and the amount from the AMM. So a market can be launched simple as hell, just throw money into the AMM, launch the market, launch the product, easy for anyone to do in the community. But then as that product grows, as it becomes more liquid, people can start to provide priced orders and price liquidity. You get better price discovery, and you can have true kind of primary price sources, primary markets on DeFi.
Thanks, guys. That was fun. And you guys got to talk about what you're building or what you like, which is, that's kind of what we're all here for. In the Ethereum community, we can all kind of strive to either build, to help on the marketing front, to grow by the word of mouth kind of and spread, what is what you want to be a part of and what you believe in, whether that's DAOs and NFTs or DeFi and more. So that's always fun, and glad to be here. Now, I kind of want to, look back in the past to try to identify something in the future here. So, guys, the question is, what do you think has been the biggest, let's call it app or project or company that's, I know that's broad, but that has brought adoption to crypto, right? So that way that we can figure out potentially what the next killer app could be, which is a variation of that. So what do you guys think has brought the most attention or the most adoption to crypto up till this point in time today, and why?
Does it have to be in DeFi or something else? I mean, if you look at just super simple, just look at Ethereum, Etherscan, gas fee, ranks. Which apps consume most amount of gas, meaning that the most amount of people are willing to pay for this app to use. I think based on the current ranking, the OpenSea or NFT trading related are number one. And then we see all the AMMs Uniswap, SushiSwap, all of the swaps, and MetaMask has a swap. And then 1inch, if you add all of them together, that's one of the biggest category where people spend the gas for. And then I think the other really big one, based on the average of 30 days, whatever, is going to be the ERC20 transfer, especially stablecoin transfer, USDC, USDT, and then DAI. And then I think that this is something really big because people settle hundreds of billions or maybe even trillions of stablecoins every year. This is a significant amount of money that people are using. And then recently, I think obviously NFT brought a lot of people outside DeFi and outside crypto. For the first time, they got access to this wallets. They start to use MetaMask to buy and then sell their NFTs and punks and whatever, what have you. So I think obviously what we can learn from this trend is that something simple, but something at the same time has a easier, understandable concepts, right? So if you explain this NFT to your grandma, right, you can say, hey, this is just a digital version of art. It's easy to understand. If you explain Uniswap to your grandma, then you have to think about how to explain that, right? So I think the more if you can describe something within one sentence, then I think that will be the thing can bring more people to on board, especially older generations.
I'm actually going to say two things very quickly. I think the first one is kind of the technical thing that has brought adoption, and the second one is more of a kind of awareness thing, something that built awareness of crypto. And the technical thing was the invention of tokens. And I think the first time I heard of it was counterparty.co on Bitcoin, and then the ERC20 standard really kicked that into second gear, third gear, fourth gear, and really created the huge ICO boom and everything else. I think that was the token invention was absolutely fundamental to enabling this ecosystem. And then the thing which I thought, in my mind, brought it to public attention where it hadn't been before was CryptoKitties. I remember CryptoKitties was the first time that people I hung out with who weren't techie and didn't care about crypto were like, what's this thing? It's on the news. Maybe I should buy one. My sister bought one. She can't do anything with it because she's not willing to pay the gas now, but at the time she bought one. And so I think that created this knowledge in sort of popular culture that didn't exist prior. And I think that was a huge moment.
Dude, everybody should be inherently happy about the NFT space as a concept, not necessarily all the projects, but as a concept for the amount of awareness and mind power that has just been hard shifted right into this entire ecosystem. So, yeah.
So from my understanding, I haven't onboarded a lot of people, but I get the pretty good feeling that like a lot of it goes for the first catching people's attention and making them aware, and that's for investing kind of things. That's word of mouth. People, they're wanting to make money on crypto. They know it's going up. They don't want to miss out on that. So, and then or they hear about NFTs, and I feel like more people have heard about that than maybe even crypto. But once they hear about it, they want to dip their toe in the water as safely and easy as they can. I know here in the U.S., Coinbase is a big part of that. A lot of people feel like there's like this little curated whitelist of tokens that they feel safe buying. They like know out of the thousands out there, Coinbase approved these, so like maybe it's okay to buy, and I'm not getting screwed over, and they don't have to research anything maybe. So Coinbase is the next part of that. So there's the awareness on both of those fronts. Then Coinbase and maybe the equivalent in other countries. I don't know which is more popular there. And then making the jump to move into MetaMask, which I guess you kind of have to if your goal is to get to NFTs right off the bat. And MetaMask has done a lot to help people enter the space, because there's a lot of people coming in, they're very, very nervous. Like they don't, every action, you could lose your money. There's no one to like call up, and there's no customer service to get your money back. So it's pretty rough if you make a mistake. So people are nervous, and MetaMask makes that simple. And a lot of people are willing to pay MetaMask's fee to like swap right there in MetaMask. Like it's not worth the anxiety to like sit there and go to these decentralized websites. So I think that the integration in MetaMask and just making things straightforward for people, once they dip their toe into the water, they can get at least what they're after, some safe things, or maybe I would consider NFTs unsafe, but some investments, some things they're interested in. So like those are the things that seem important to me, that are bringing people in and making it easy.
Yeah, just to add on one thing, which is regulation is very important to consider when you think about like mass adoption. The kind of, the heavy you are toward regulations, then relatively speaking, I think you have more barrier for mass adoption. In some of the DeFis, the regulators might require, KYCs and other sort of reporting mechanisms, and that would be pretty big issues. Versus some other protocols that, this is completely off the, let's say, security laws, then you might have a faster growth trajectory, in my opinion. So one more kind of dimension to think about, which is regulation.
Yeah, and there's so many protocols, so many NFTs just growing, that it's becoming something that's on the radar for the regulators. And I mean, we've seen, as we just mentioned, some of these innovations in crypto that have kind of grown and accelerated the mass adoption, have got us here. And I think a reason why a lot of us, have came into this space is because we've seen what the outcomes can be in a realistic manner in terms of your finances, of the world, of society, of the digital. Just there's a lot of things that kind of bring us in. And the title of this panel has to do with DeFi Degens. So we've been pretty straightforward here. But I would like to invite anybody to tell perhaps a story about a epic yield farm, or a miserable rug, or an NFT, or something that you like to do in the free time that's not working, a little story of an experience on chain. Anybody can take the floor. Or if you don't want to, we can totally move on. But it is called DeFi Degens, and I'd tell a story, but you guys are the speakers here. I think one of the biggest degen things is just like a lot of the high APY pools. I don't blame them for not wanting to, or not being able to recall one. There are so many, so just a reminder, guys, stay safe in DeFi, but keep getting out there. Let's get back to onboarding as we kind of wrap up here. I think it's imperative that we understand what is required for us to grow the ecosystem. So let's talk about what you guys think are some of the best ideas for us as a community, for all of us to take action on, perhaps with an outcome to grow the community. How can we grow the community as a whole? All of us in this room, what can we take with us to grow the community and onboard more users to get to 1 billion?
I don't know if a lot of you may not have been around when Ethereum was starting, but like it seemed there's a lot more excitement back then. And oh, we're gonna change the world. This is changing everything. I mean, obviously that's still with us all, but I don't know. It kind of like reminds me of like the early days of Apple, and people building in garages, and like people like experimenting and tinkering, and that excitement. I think that drew in a lot of the most valuable people into the space, like the people who were going to really contribute and make a difference. That those people were attracted by this spirit of changing the world, the spirit of something different. Like maybe this is going to take off like the internet took off, and it just opens up so many possibilities. So that starry-eyed wonder of what's possible out there. I feel like that spirit and that ethos brings a lot of. It doesn't just bring the valuable people. I think it's just a magnet that attracts a lot of people, and I feel like it's underrated, and I feel like it should be done more. I feel
so
like
keep the vibes up, guys. Keep the vibes up.
Yes, yes.
I think one thing that's been really helpful is just talking to people in your life and sending them even just a small amount of crypto. There's nothing like trying it for yourself and then just like feeling that experience and feeling that magic. And so I always have a little bit on hand that I like to just like send to friends and family, and it's cool because like now years later, people are like, I got the Uniswap airdrop because you sent me some ETH. And I'm like, okay, good. Now go use that Uni to like do something interesting and learn more about stuff. So I feel like that's always the best way, just getting people diving into it head first and learning by doing.
Something I like to think about is communities versus community. And what I mean is, the bigger you get, the less likely it is that everyone wants to be part of the same community. Like, we have a community here which is builders, developers, degens, whatever, and this is an amazing feeling. And that feeling won't last when you're a billion people if you're trying to shove them all into the same community. But if you look for the different communities, I mean, NFTs have been a great example. You bring in artists, you bring in creators, completely different, although adjacent and very aligned to this community. And so I think actually creating these kind of sub-communities where people find their home and find something they're passionate about, find something they can get involved in and contribute to, because in the early days of crypto, I got people super interested and they're like, what can I do? I'm like, can you code? They're like, no, so you can't be involved. Well, so you don't want that to happen. You want actually to get the communities of different types of users, different diversity of people, because I think that's how you get to, we change the whole world rather than we are a bunch of developers.
Bullish on DAOs. And to wrap us up.
Yeah, to wrap us up, I think I think to be honest, I totally agree. I think the token is the best way to connect people. This is the whole premise of sort of decentralized protocols and finance, which is we have this token that has a bunch of utility, and then it appreciate over time, and that connect the whole community together. Right? If you look at like Link, they have Link Marines, and then each tokens have his own sort of army behind it. So I think, to be honest, really just send out some tokens to your friends and then give them some education. And then once they got into it, I think it's going to be a rabbit hole. They will just keep on going. The retention rate is, churn rate is pretty low, right? Maybe 5% of people leave during the bear market, and then out of that 5%, when the bull market come back, majority of them are going to come back again. So I think just giving them some tokens and some education will be the best way to grow the community.
Thanks, guys. And thank you, everybody, for coming out and hearing about the onboarding DeFi talk. Appreciate every one of you guys for coming out, and cheers, guys.